Well, hello, welcome to a new week of our daily Bible videos. If you don't know me, my name's Sarah. I'm the curate now at St John's Westwood and St Stephen's Canley. I spend most of my time leading the guys at St Stephen's. This next week coming up, we're going to be moving through the rest of Luke, and today we're looking at Luke chapter 19, starting at verse 45. And going through to chapter 20, verse 8. Now, so far in the Gospel of Luke, we've seen Jesus really begin to challenge people's perspectives over who the important people are in the world. And so in the previous few chapters, we've seen him doing things like making friends with Zacchaeus, who was up the tree, the tax collector who otherwise would have been marginalized in society and really disliked. We see Jesus challenging perspectives about children and how important they are. We see him healing the blind beggar. And we begin to see just how different Jesus is to those who considered themselves to be religious at the time, and especially the religious leaders. And the next bit of Luke's gospel that we're going to look at this week, we begin to see these differences really increase, the difference between how Jesus sees the world and how those that thought they were religious did. And this bit of Luke's gospel that we're getting to now is often called the Passion. So this part of the story begins to talk about the events that led up to the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So in the beginning of the passage that we've read this morning, we see Jesus arriving in Jerusalem, and he goes straight into the temple. And this is really a turning point in the Gospel of Luke. It's a turning point in the ministry of Jesus. We've just seen this moment where Jesus has arrived in Jerusalem. He's kind of travelled in on a donkey and the crowds have kind of gone wild. And that's a messianic moment for Jesus. It's a moment where he's making a comment about being the Messiah. And a lot of the people at the time would have understood that a lot of the things that were happening about the way that he was entering into Jerusalem were claims that he was the Messiah. And then here we have him going into the temple. And this is another messianic moment. This is a moment where Jesus is acting as the Messiah. And the Jewish people at the time would have had the belief that the Messiah, when he came, would bring light to his people. So what is the light that Jesus brings in this moment in the temple? Well, it's about worship. He's challenging their idea of worship and what the temple is to be used for. Jesus comes into the temple, and his idea of the worship desired by God is so different from how things are actually being done that he begins to overturn the tables, and he gets frustrated and even angry, and he challenges them that the temple is to be a house of prayer and not a den of robbers. And it makes me wonder today, have I got lost in my thinking about what the kind of worship is that pleases Jesus? Have I got lost in my thinking about what kind of church pleases Jesus? We're coming to the end of the summer, and some of us will be turning our thoughts to what church might be like for the autumn and over the winter, and what worship might be like. And we've had to do church in completely different ways over the past few months. And I wonder whether we might pray together this morning that our church, that our worship, that our homes and our families and our own lives might be full of worship which pleases Jesus. So as we continue in this week, we're going to see how vastly different Jesus' ideas and actions were compared to the religious people of the time. And we see that even from the end of the passage that we've read today, this building tension between Jesus and the religious leaders. We see this turning moment, this turning towards the cross, the passion of Jesus beginning, those events that lead up to his death and his resurrection. And so I invite you today to pray with me that we would also see this as a turning point for us today, that we would turn our hearts towards Jesus, that we would offer him the kind of worship and prayer that he desires, that we would also turn our hearts towards the cross today.